Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, it's the final card book of them all, the IndyCar series. Now, is this going to be the last video that is going to be concerning around my collection? No, it is not. There will be probably like 2 more videos concerning the other stuff that I have in my collection, ranging from books to hats to just other pieces of stuff that I've got around, which really is more of a show around my room than anything else like that. But we'll talk about that in due time. But this is the final card book. We've done everything. We covered mainly NASCAR, which is what I'm the biggest fan of. But I have a very, very soft spot in my heart for IndyCar as well. So let's get into it. So, this is something to talk about real quick. This here is just filled with papers and papers and papers of racing stuff. So I'm actually going to be really, really careful and just try to make sure that I get all this stuff out of here. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Let's look at some of this stuff. So we got some 2003 cards here. So we got George Mack, we got Ayrton Dare, Jacques Lazier, Jonathan Erlin, Scott Dixon, Tora Takagi, Buddy Lazier, Ari Lyondike Jr., Matt Beardsley, Ronnie John Cox, Ed Carpenter, Corey Winthrill, Mark Taylor, Aaron Fike, Vitor Mira, Eddie Cheever Jr., Michael Andretti, Jeff Ward, Billy Boat, Tony Renner, Roger Yasukawa, Tony Kanaan, Robbie Buell, and the late Dan Weldon. And these cards, all mentioned, are from 2003. From a fan guide that I got many years ago. These came from back in the day. They had Hot Wheels that they made for Target, I believe. So you have Tony Kanaan, Marco Andretti, and Scott Dixon. And they have driver info on the back here, which is really cool. Random pages that I printed off on the internet. We got a page on Mario Andretti. A couple of pages technically. Page on Ryan Hunter-Reay back in 2012, I believe. Marco Andretti, John Andretti, Dario Franchitti. And then this is from a Wii game called Indianapolis 500 Legends. Joe Leonard, Dino Revson, Parnelli Jones, Mario Andretti, Jim Clark, Dan Gurney, who is one of my favorites, AJ Foyt, which I custom created, and then we got another one of Mario Andretti, and another one of Joe Leonard, and another one of Jim Clark, another Peter Learson, another Parnelli Jones. This I printed off many years ago of Sebastian Bourdais back when Champ Car was still a thing. And then I got to go to my very, very first Indianapolis 500 in 2012 on May 27th with my uncle and his brother. And I created a custom page out to show who was racing that day. Gave them a copy too. And just went through as much information as I could to figure out what was going on. So, and this was the year that all the fans, earlier fans at least, got white sunglasses to commemorate Dan Weldon, as he had died in October the year previous. And this is pretty cool. Very, very old hero card of Sarah Fisher for Walker Racing, and then Tora Takagi with Walker Racing. So the 5 and the 15. that just kind of gets nestled right into here. So we'll go ahead and put these sheets back. And the thing was, to talk about Bourdais for a brief moment, with Bourdais, what was cool about him is Bourdais was the most like championship winning driver in Champ Car. When you would go on the Speed Channel back in the day, and you would listen to I think it was like the Speed Report or Wind Tunnel with Dave Despain, always about Paul Tracy and Sebastian Bourdais. And I don't know what it was. Maybe it was because Bourdais was the bigger winner in all of Champ Car. But I resonated with him. I really, really liked him. So I actually got to go to Indianapolis in 2007 to see the time trials. And I got this stack of cards here that were really, really cool. And I kept them all this time. Thomas Schechner, Helio Castroneves, Vitor Mir, Sarah Fisher. I actually met Sarah Fisher back in 2006, I want to say, or 2004. Sam Hornish Jr., who's my favorite. Danica Patrick, Scott Sharp, Scott Dixon, Dan Weldon. Tony Kanaan, Buddy Rice, Jeff Simmons, who replaced the late Paul Dana that season. Ed Carpenter, AJ Foyt IV, Mil Caduno, Marco Andretti. Jeff Simmons here, a card that I got from when I went to, from a diecast that I got. And there's a couple other things here, too. I'll have to add them to it. So I got the Jeff Simmons card. We got the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Hall of Fame Museum. And then I also have a card of Charlie Kimball. I forgot that I had this. And then we have a Dan Weldon card here from when he won the Indy 500, and that was included with the diecast I got. Some more cards here. We got Sam Hornish Jr., Ed Carpenter, Scott Sharp, and Greg Ray. A 1998 fold-out page for the 1988 Indy 500. It's seen a little bit of wear and tear and damage, but my uncle gave me this old program, which is awesome. This came from the sheet of, from the inside of the fan guide for the 2003 season. I got this at Kentucky Speedway. I've got the flags, the terms, and the points, and then you fold this out. And originally this was all together, and I would say that if you folded it together more like this, you could get a better image of it. But it's okay. It's the next page and then the back cover and everything of the IndyCar series. And then this is the front cover here. Signed Paul Dana, hero card here. I met Paul in 2003, I want to say, when he was running the Indy Lights program. We met him out in the parking lot at Kentucky after the race. He was just walking around, signed some hero cards, gave them to the fans. He was just a very grassroots driver, and he was a cool dude. And it was so sad when he passed away. That really, really sucked. 2003 starting lineup for the Brickyard, for the Indy 500. And I think I actually stuck some more stuff inside of here. 2003 hero cards from that fan guide that I showed you earlier. Helio Castroneves, Sam Hornish Jr., Gilles DeFerrin, Scott Sharp. Which Sharp and Sam were my two favorite IndyCar drivers during that time. I like Scott because he was born in February, as am I, and he drove the 8, which is my favorite number. And for Sam, he's an Ohio native, and he was just one of the... I loved his paint scheme too, but one of the fastest guys on the IndyCar circuit. Thomas Schechner, AJ Foyt IV, Kenny Brack, Felipe Giafoni, Sarah Fisher, a very young pre-champion Dario Franchitti. Well, pre-champion, actually. Alonso Jr., kind of nearing the end of his career, honestly. And Buddy Rice. Then I got a 2005 Scott Stripe Hero card that I got at Kentucky while touring the internals of the track. And so, Adrian Fernandez, Dan Weldon, signed Buddy Rice Hero card. And then this one is pretty special. So, forever ago, back in 2012, I want to say, I was sick. I was in the hospital. And because I went to a children's hospital at the time, this is the same case where I met Sarah Fisher years earlier. But they had something called the Ryan Seacrest Studio, which was just recently built, sponsored by Ryan Seacrest. And they would have people from all over the country who were famous or people who did stuff for not necessarily just the community of Cincinnati, but just in general, like very, very philanthropic. Heavily into philanthropy. I went through this list and didn't care, and then Charlie Kimball, and I was like, IndyCar driver. Oh, absolutely, yes. And I had heard a little bit about Charlie Kimball. I knew that he had diabetes, but yeah, I was like, you know what? That would actually be really, really cool. So I sat down, the day came, he came into the studio and you could call in, and I did. I think really I was the only person that really had a sense of knowledge of auto racing, so my questions were kind of complex at least, but it was more that, I simply stated to him in the telephone call that I think, and I've always felt this way, I think what Charlie Kimball does in the world of IndyCar is he's actually pretty humble in regards to his diabetes and so. And I think that he's an inspiration to a lot of people. When I think of being in the hospital with my own conditions and stuff like that and my own medical illness, you can get really, really put down. And you can be told by any stretch of the imagination that what you're dreaming of, what you want to do, may not be possible. But I think Charlie is like a really, really good inspiration for a lot of young people, and a lot of kids especially, that Charlie wanted to be a race car driver, and he got sick with diabetes, and he's managed to control that very, very well, and he's managed to beat it. And that's a really, really incredible story. So he personalized this hero card to me. Blake, Pedal to the Metal, Charlie Kimball, number 83. And I actually have, as that fell, a Charlie Kimball hat here that I purchased shortly after the IndyCar season 1 year. And I have a Tresiba shirt, which was his next sponsor after Novo Nordisk left. And I used that in quite a few online IndyCar leagues, where I ran the 83 car, out of respect for Charlie. I have another one that's just signed by Charlie Kimball. This was one that I got a year later. This is really cool. There was a contest going on. I can't remember what the company was, but there was a contest that if you asked for a hero card within a certain number of people, you would be able to get a Willpower hero card, and this came in the mail and it was signed. I'm not a massive Willpower hero card. I'm not a massive Willpower fan, but I do appreciate the guy. I think that he's really, really good for the sport. So yeah, that's really cool. I just won it in just by asking, and it was really awesome. Got this from the same group, the Rev Racing group, that I got all the Ryan Blaney hero cards in a previous episode. I got one of Joseph Newgarden and one of Helio. And then we're going to head to something interesting. So this is where everything else lies. This is mainly composed of IndyCar, but I kind of wanted to go ahead and stick this in with other stuff. So let's do it. Steve Kinzer. Purchased this online. Never regretted it. Steve Kinzer was my favorite sprint car driver when it came to the World of Outlaws. I remember watching Speed Channel and just seeing him still kick major butt in the sprint car series. I had no idea he was a 20-time World of Outlaw champion. I like Dave Blaney, don't get me wrong, but Steve Kinzer, oh, he's essentially the Richard Petty of sprint cars. You know, you can't really deny that. When I went to one of those NASCAR fairs forever ago with that Kroger that I mentioned, I met a young man by the name of Ty Rose, who I don't know if he still races. But the dude was cool. I mean, this guy was like around my age, if not maybe a tiny bit older. And he was racing, I think these are Bandoleros. Really cool. This I got at Lawrenceburg Speedway. Cody Gardner, and then Brandon Spithaler. So included that. This is actually very, very recent. A guy by the name of Chris Olding. I met at the car show when I met Dale Jr. Signed this for me. I definitely want to check this guy out. I think from what he said, he doesn't race at Lawrenceburg, but he does race around in the Tri-County area, well, probably a little bit more in Indiana than he does like middle of Indiana, and not really as much in Cincinnati or so. But I would definitely love to see this guy in action. I think it's cool. Hoffman Racing, which is a local team based out of not exactly Cincinnati, but in the Cincinnati area, one of the smaller cities. They've always been part of it, and they've had a long lineup of really good drivers. To look here, it says, drivers of note, they had Eric Gordon, Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, Kenny Irwin Jr., Rich Vogler, Dave Darland, Johnny Parsons Jr., Tim Richmond, Jay Drake, Brian Tyler, Tracy Hines, Robbie Stanley, J.J. Yaley, Casey Kane, Steve Butler, and Jerry Coons Jr. So, Gordon, Stewart, Irwin, Richmond, Hines, Yaley, Kane, Coons. 8 drivers. 8 drivers of magnitude that you just hear in racing all the time. And that's really cool. I think Jerry Coons Jr. actually just ran the Chili Bowl just a night ago. Another mean green team with the Hoffman Racing Group. Jimmy Means, I got this when I was at Lawrenceburg. I don't actually remember getting this. It's kind of cool. Another Hoffman Racing one. I think this was 2019 or 2018. I really like it though. This I got from Valvoline's website. I got this in the mail. You sign up, you got some points, do whatever. I picked this Ray Evernham's Ghost Whelen modified car. It's actually really cool. Now, I, personally, am not a fan inherently of NHRA, but I gotta recognize greatness when there is. So, I know who John Force is. I really did like his old Castrol GTX. Because John Force, in my mind, is kind of similar to Steve Kinzer. They're the top guys of this sport. You know, you can't really take that away from them. So, I kind of like that. I purchased both of these online, and the rest of these I got in the mail. With the Joey Logano Hero card with the Pennzoil one that I was talking about in a previous episode. So, I got Ron Capps, who I like Ron Capps. Jeff Beckman, who I've never heard of before. Matt Hagan, I have heard of that name before. Another Matt Hagan Hero card. Tommy Johnson Jr., which I've watched a little bit of NHRA as of late. I still can't really get into it, but I think it's really cool that he runs a Make-A-Wish car. Antron Brown, I've heard of him before, I think. Leah Pritchard, got two of her hero cards here. Come on. There we go. I don't know why why I don't have it flipped the other way, where it's Mopar and then Pennzoil. But that's really cool, though. And then Tony Schumacher. Big guy in the funny car division. Not funny car, Top Fuel. So this is kind of the last thing to really talk about here. So, in that 2003 fan guide for the IndyCar series, they also included track information and when the races were held. And I thought that this was pretty cool. I cut these out and I went ahead and kept them. This particular page is... These are the finish... This is a smaller copy of this, which came from the book. But this is all the finishing positions for that season. So, Scott Dixon won the very first race. Gilles de Ferran won the last race of the season and won the fourth race of the season. He actually did not run the entire season, however. So, finishing order. Then this is where the points come in. Let's plan that out. And this is given to me by my uncle, who included this 100 years at the Indy 500, and all a little bit of information there, shape, speed, and not much to talk about on that side there. But yeah, that's quite literally everything. So guys, that's it. That's all of my racing stuff. That's every single card book that I have in my possession. Now, like I said, we'll do a video sometime in the future of me going over some of the additional stuff that I've got, like diecast and everything like that. But everything in regards to hero cards and the like, that's everything. It's absolutely everything. So guys, thank you very much for watching this series. Thank you very much for watching the update too. And I hope you guys have a great day. And I'll catch you again very, very soon. Until then, see you.